Hi, everyone, and welcome to a webinar about the IDN internship that we are about to launch. So I just wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the internship experience, what it will look like, and we're also really excited to have three former students, graduates from the program, who are going to talk about their own internship experiences. Is the presentation look okay? I know it's in not in presentation mode, but it's easier for me this way as long as you can see it. All right. So, first of all, why did we add an internship to the IDN program? So students have been asking for years to have more real life hands-on experience. All of our courses have real life projects built into them, and often students are bringing in their own projects from work to work on. But we do often hear from students that they want sort of more real world experience. So that's really the reason that we've added this internship experience. It's responding to needs that we've heard from the students that they need that kind of transition between coursework and the real life work. And we've also had lots of positive feedback from former students. So Alexandra, Tyler, and Ryan, who are here tonight, independently took it upon themselves to do internships back when they were in the program. And we had a focus group with them about a year ago and talked about whether it was worthwhile for them to do the internship. And they gave us a lot of ideas that led into how we've designed it. And we also want to build up our instructional design community. So connecting with other employers who are looking for interns can help us just build our community. And if students are working with them as interns, those companies in the future are going to be hopefully more likely to hire IDN students. So the first thing I want to do is ask the panelists, what did you kind of learn from the experience of having an internship? And I'm going to ask you guys kind of in the order I see you. So apologies, Alexandra, to put you on the spot right off the bat. But kind of what did you learn from that experience? And if you want to tell us a little bit about, we'll go into how we find them later, but a little bit about what you did for your internship, that would be great.
Yeah, so I actually came from elementary education, so it was quite a jump for me to kind of, get the ball rolling for an instructional design degree anyway. But during my internship, I learned a lot about working in a corporate environment, which was really different from higher education. In the corporate world, deadlines are tighter. There's more focus on working with different teams and following strict guidelines. In higher education, there's usually more room for flexibility and exploring ideas, but kind of like in a corporate setting. So I had to quickly adapt and focus on meeting goals and results. But it was really interesting, kind of like when I decided to do the internship, that I was like, oh, should I focus more on corporate or should I focus more on higher education? So I really wanted to get that experience to see if I was interested in it and where it would lead me. So, and I am in a corporate job today, so I clearly kind of liked it a little bit. So that was pretty much
Thank,
what I learned.
thank you. Tyler, what about you?
I did my internship with the Connecticut Center for Nursing Workforce, and I really learned a lot about how to appropriately voice my feedback while working with the lead instructional designer, because in these projects and these courses, you're collaborating, but with the on in-field experience, it was really insightful to see how all of the concepts that you learn throughout the courses, you can really voice it and see how it might impact the learning experience that you're creating. And I really learned a lot about how to use a new learning management system and fulfilling certain responsibilities and keeping track of those responsibilities, because we would meet every Sunday and talk about the module that we just finished, and then what does the module ahead look like, and then give each other feedback on what we think is user friendly and what we think wasn't. So I learned a lot about the revision process as well, just constantly going back and making sure that you're aligning up with the objectives, because we did constantly use the objectives as a roadmap for each module. And that's what was a big focus throughout the IDM program, is always using those objectives. So I got to see it, what it looks like in for the internship that I did.
Thanks, Tyler. Ryan, what about you? What do you feel you learned from the experience of having an internship?
Yeah, I want to echo Alexandra's point. I came from secondary education, and my internship was in a corporate field that I'm also now working full time in. I went right from the internship to my current job. So just having experience outside of the classroom, because that was my only professional work experience. So just, dipping my toe into that was productive. And it also was helpful to see how the pieces of an IDN project translate from the classroom to the corporate environment, just because when you do in class, there's a lot more detail and steps and requirements. And when you kind of see it in practice in the real world, you can just kind of see what the priorities are in terms of completing those pieces. So it was nice to see like the real world application of what I was doing in class as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So so they each did an internship that they found on their own and did outside of their coursework. They didn't get credit for it. So we decided to build an internship course into the IDN program so that students have the option, it's not going to be required, but you'll have the option of taking an internship as a class. So you will pay for it as though you pay for a course, but you'll get credit for it just like you would with a course. So we're encouraging students to think about this towards the end of the program. I think it's really important to have some experience in instructional design. You definitely need to get through your first semester, and then the more courses you have, the more value you're going to bring to your internship experience. And the way we're going to design it is that you can take either the final course, which is right now the capstone, or the internship. So when you get close to the end, you can make that decision about which one you want to take. Both of them, though, are going to occur in the same Blackboard course. So when you go into Blackboard, you're going to be seeing students who are in the capstone, which is a course focused on developing a project, and students who are taking an internship. So those students are going to be working, for an employer. And, we're going to do some like serious instructional design to make that all work. But this is a model that we think is going to be effective. And so another thing is that students are going to be in charge of finding their own internship, and you have to have your internship approved before registering for the course. So my advice to students is going to be, if you're not really sure or you don't have something lined up, register for $550 and then try to get your internship in place and approved, and then you can switch your registration over to $555, which is the internship. And so that way, if you don't pull something together by the time that you're taking the class, you can just resort to being in our traditional wrap-up course, which is $550. We're going to require 100 hours during the semester. So that means if you're in the fall or the spring, it's a 14-week semester. You need to complete 100 hours at your internship during 14 weeks. But in the summer, you're going to have less time. It's only going to be the 12-week semester. So it's just something else to keep in mind. And it's going to be graded pass fail. So we're not going to kind of grade every individual thing you're doing. We're overall going to see if it was a successful experience for you or not. So the steps for getting an internship, first, it's going to be on you to find an internship. And we're going to talk about that in a minute about some different options we have available. And both Professor Schwartz and I receive lots of different opportunities for internships each semester. So we'll share things with you as they come up, but it is going to be on students to find their internship. Then you'll write up a proposal. I think it's just a one-page proposal explaining to us what the internship is, who you'll be working with, and a little bit about the job responsibilities. And it will need approval from the IDN program director, which right now is me, but coming back in January is going to be Professor Schwartz. So I'm very excited. And then so whoever sits in that role at the time of your internship is the person who will sign off on it. Then you're going to register for the class and of course just complete your internship and the associated coursework. So if you're thinking ahead and you want to start thinking about what you might do for an internship, or maybe you've heard of an opportunity or you found something on LinkedIn, the first thing you have to do is set up an introductory meeting with that organization. At the end of this presentation, I'll share two that we have right this minute that if people are interested in, you could sign up for or you could apply for. So once you land the internship opportunity, you need to speak with the supervisor, figure out what the dates look like, and they're going to need to coincide with the semester. Ensure that there's at least 100 hours of work to do and talk about what that work's going to look like. And then finally, kind of for your benefit, you really want to review the logistics. Because we're an online program, we are getting a lot of Connecticut opportunities. But for students that don't live here, you need to make sure that that's something that can be done remotely, because some of them are saying you need to be, in Connecticut and come to the office at least a couple times versus others that are willing to be fully remote. And also, it's going to be up to you to find out kind of like if there's a stipend or if it's a paid internship or if it's not a paid internship. Um, I've seen kind of like 50-50 out there. So the final step is going to be to write up that proposal and submit it to the IDN director after you've had this initial meeting. So bouncing back to our panelists, I know probably for students, it might be a little bit overwhelming to have to find their own internship. So if you guys are willing to share how you each found your internship, that would be great. And I'll start with you again, Alexandra.
I'm pretty boring. I found my internship through a Google search, actually. I just typed in instructional design internship and found a bunch and began applying. I think I kind of had an advantage because it was, I can't remember if it was after COVID or like around that time frame. So there was a lot more remote internships available. So I really did have that advantage with that time frame. Um, in my experience, I do recommend starting with Google or visiting a company website before turning to LinkedIn because often by the time a job or internship is posted on LinkedIn, it might have already been considered late with like a lot of applicants having already applied. And then something else I would recommend, there are more opportunities in the summertime rather than in the winter or the fall. You might be competing with undergrad students actually. So reach out to a hiring manager or a recruiter about being a grad student. They might be flexible on that. If they don't have a lot of applicants for that position, they might be willing to just give it to a grad student. So it's not set in stone. If you see one that you're interested in, I would just say go for it. And then if they reach out to you, then have that conversation with them. And then my last tip would be using different keywords rather than limiting yourself to just searching for instructional designer. I would look for maybe like learning experience designer or something along those lines because there might be different opportunities with different titles, very, very similar skills that are involved that you could be missing out on. So
Thank you. What about you, Tyler? How did you find your internship?
Actually, Professor Schwartz shared it out. And she said if you were interested, just to reach out. And then I met with the director just as a sort of an initial interview, but more just to get to know each other. And then that's how the interview started. But I would agree with Alexandra as just checking these maybe organizations or companies or universities that maybe you're interested in and reaching out to them through email and just explaining, with this case, just the situation about how it fits in with the IDN program and why they're interested and so on. Because I felt like when I was in the interview process, when I initially reached out to these places, some you don't hear back from, but the ones that you do, they really like your how you initiate and advocate for yourself. And I feel like that allowed me to stand out, and I can see how it would fit in with an internship as well to make you stand out.
Thanks, Tyler. Brian, how about you? How did you find your internship?
So I actually found mine on Quinnipiac's jobs portal. It was cross-posted on LinkedIn and on Indeed, but I found it on Quinnipiac, which was awesome. I was looking towards the end of my teaching year. I knew I wanted to pivot out of the classroom and I wanted to find something else. And I was looking for full-time positions and having some difficulty, but the internship, they were open to it. I applied, I got it. And it worked out really nicely. So Quinnipiac came through, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's great to know, and I'll have to link out. I'm going to put together like a page on our Blackboard site about the internships, and I'll link out to the jobs board. And I know we also have another tool called Handshake, which might be now might have replaced what the jobs board was. But so we do have some like of those search tools internally too.
Yeah.
All right, so back to my presentation. So again, I don't want people to feel kind of overwhelmed by this because we are going to have a support structure. All three of us are going to work together to get you through the internship experience, which is something actually, Alexandra, Tyler, and Ryan didn't have. They kind of went out and did this all on their own. But once we have this course in place, you're going to have yourself, your supervisor at your internship site, and then also a professor at Quinnipiac, whoever's teaching that course. So your responsibilities are going to be finding that internship, making sure it's approved, and then completing all that internship work, the things that they're assigning you at the workplace, but then also completing some additional course assignments in Blackboard, which I'll talk about in a minute. You also need to make sure that the supervisor of the internship understands their role because they should be mentoring you. It just shouldn't be something where they're just kind of passing a whole bunch of work off to you and busy work. It really should be a learning experience. So that's something you want to really talk about and make sure while if this person is interviewing you, you're also sort of interviewing them to make sure you're going to get something out of this. So the supervisor's role is going to be to establish this internship and the parameters of the work. They're going to assign and evaluate your tasks based on what you're doing in that job. And then they are also going to be required to complete a midterm and final evaluation. And this isn't going to be something overly involved. It's going to be sort of just probably some spaces where they can write a little bit about you and maybe some things that you are doing well and some things you should work on. And we may have a little rubric attached so that they can kind of quickly give you an assessment. But again, something to keep in mind while speaking with the internship person that we're going to need this from them at the midterm and at the final. And then finally, the professor, again, that person will be teaching both IDN 550 and 555 in the same course. So we're always here to support you, obviously, just like we are in any other course. We will grade the course assignments that are unique to the Quinnipiac experience, and then we'll also provide a final grade for the internship. So you're not going to get graded, we'll take the recommendation, obviously, from the supervisor, and we're going to give you the final grade, which again is going to be pass fail. So obviously, if the supervisor thinks you're doing a great job, you're going to be just fine. So what is that additional coursework going to look like? So on top of the 100 total hours of internship work, we're going to ask you to maintain a log and we'll provide something. We're still kind of ironing out these details, but a log of kind of what you've done and how much time you're spending at the internship. We're also going to have weekly video check-ins, which we do for our capstone students, where you just are recording a response to a prompt each week. So that's going to help the whole community, all those students in that class together, stay connected, and hopefully you learn from one another if there are other students taking internships, kind of what their experiences are like and an opportunity to share. You will also do a midterm and final reflection, but these are going to be really reflective self-assessments. So, low stakes, non-threatening, just an opportunity to think back on what you're learning and how things are going, both at the midterm and the final. And then in our capstone course, we have live presentations at the very end of the course. Those are usually our students who are graduating, and we wanted to preserve that experience for the internship students as well. So we're going to have you do a 5-minute presentation talking about what you learned at your internship. And then finally, you are working on your portfolios throughout the whole program. And as part of your sort of exit from the program, we ask that you submit your final portfolio. So that's something you can be working on as well. So back to my panel, what tips would you give a student who is starting an internship?
Like a million tips. Well, my internship was through 1-800-Flowers. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that. And I really wanted that corporate experience because I wasn't sure where I wanted to end up. And I'm still in corporate, so I'm okay with it. I don't know really where I'm going to end up. So I might end up in higher education or stay in corporate. I don't know. But my first tip is to be open to learning and adapting to new tools and software. So one of the kind of like struggles I had with the program, which we talked about last year, was that in the corporate environment, we use Articulate Storyline. Now, we didn't have access to that in the program. We would use Adobe Captivate. I know Adobe Captivate had a huge facelift. I don't know if corporate companies are going to start using that, but that was one of the things when I kind of started in my first corporate job. I was like, oh my gosh, I have no clue how to use this. So ask to use it, ask a lot of questions, and ask to learn things. I would always ask to do the learning management system, and I did, and I ended up being like really good at it. And I actually ended up being the go-to to the learning management system at the end. Ask for, training on anything, even if they say no, it's not in their budget, or, whatever your internship is, you never know until you ask. I'm currently learning AI and simulation right now in my job, and they kind of asked me, "Do you want to learn this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But if you have the opportunity to learn new tools and software, 100% go for it. Um, and take the time to understand the needs of your audience, whether it's corporate employees or students. It'll help you create more effective and engaging learning experiences. Um, Communicate. I have a really hard time doing that, I have to admit. I've gotten better, more confident at it, but whether you're working with a team or independently, keep your supervisor and teammate updated. They are not going to expect you to know everything. So, you think, oh my gosh, this might be a stupid question, but it doesn't matter, because they will not say, oh my gosh, she should know how to do that, or he should know how to do that, or they should know how to do that. So, ask the questions, communicate as much as possible, um, try new ideas, always keep the learning objectives in mind, but your design should be, engaging, but also obviously useful for your learners. So try new things with permission, of course. And get feedback. That is like a huge, huge, with whatever you're working on, always ask for feedback, but don't take it personally. So I know a lot of people, when they get feedback on a project and it's not great, they kind of take it personally, but take it as a learning opportunity. When I started my first corporate job, I I was happy that I did the internship because I got that corporate experience. And when I started my first job, it was in the tech industry. I didn't feel like I was like, a tiny little fish in open water. I was like, oh my gosh, I know a little bit, I'm here to learn, but I know a little bit. So I was happy that I got that experience. But now that I'm in my second corporate job, like my confidence level has gone from really here all the way up to here. I ask those questions. Um, I lead on projects now, even with like higher up seniors and managers, because I want to learn. I get that feedback from everybody, and I'm like, what do we think about these projects going forward? What is the reaction? What is the audience saying? Are they enjoying it? Are they learning from it? Like, so. And then another big one I have to say, sorry, I talked too much. um, is that always make sure your designs adhere to any compliance and legal requirements. That is huge. And that is something that I really did not consider until my second corporate job. They touched on it a little bit in my internship, but we use a lot of legal and compliance in our designs, and accessibility standards, making content usable for people with disabilities, data privacy rules, or just industry specific regulations. That is huge. So I would kind of brush up on your knowledge of accessibility. And a lot of employers really like to hear about it, that you know about it. So that's all of my tips for now. I might
Thank
have more
you.
later. I don't know.
Tyler, do you have any tips for students who are starting an internship?
Yeah, I would say don't be passive. I think I played a passive role because I was an introverted person. Like as a teacher, sometimes I was a little bit shy, but I feel like when you're in that role, it's a really unique opportunity to ask a lot of questions, try new things out so that you can build up projects that you can put into your portfolio. Because when I was on interviews, I got a lot of most of them looked at the portfolio that I linked into the resume, and some of the projects that I built into there were from the internship. And I had the opportunity to really leverage a lot of what tie in what I learned in the IDN program with the internship, and I feel like it helped me stand out, even though I didn't have any experience in the field. And I think that it's also an opportunity to see how you work, what your collaborative style is with those that are in the internship. And I think that goes along with not being passive because, or just initiating and being a go-getter. I actually just started an instructional design role today, and I'm getting like all these teams meetings and so on for all these projects that down the road I'll be working on different people with. And feel like right now I'm getting the sense that it's going to be a lot more collaborative with projects and sharing ideas than it was as from teaching. So if I didn't have the internship experience, I don't feel like I would really know what that looked like in the instructional design aspect. So I feel more confident knowing that I had that experience before I start working one-on-one with different teammates on the projects that are upcoming. So I feel like, yeah, take advantage of every opportunity in the internship.
And it sounds like what I heard kind of from both of you is just the confidence of having had kind of got your feet wet with the internship experience and then going into later positions. So that's a good theme for people to recognize too. Ryan, what tips would you give to students starting an internship or starting out here?
I do feel like a lot of them have been covered. I want to echo Tyler's point. I think that, especially in the internship, I think it's really easy to kind of fly under the radar just because you're a temporary hire, unless there's a full-time position to be taken, but it's, a small duration of employment. And everybody's been kind of working as is without the internship. So sometimes not because they're unimpressed or anything. They're just used to working with the regular people and they kind of don't think that there's an intern that can support them. So just, reach out to the people on your team, ask for help, ask if there's anything that you can help them with. Say, I'm looking for the experience and I'd love to be involved. And maybe it's not necessarily like work that you're being given, but you just kind of like sit in on the meetings and see how people communicate with each other and see how people, I don't know, interact and get a project started. Like any of that just exposure is valuable. And I also think to the degree you can, networking as much as possible in the internship, not only with people on your team, but with people in the company. Just, as you get onto a project team and you're meeting people from different departments, like try to foster those relationships to the extent you can. I had a remote internship and also a remote position. So I do think that adds a little bit more difficulty to the networking piece, but it's not impossible. And there's a lot of value in making relationships with people in the workplace. So to the extent you can, I think that's a good thing to prioritize in the few months you have as an intern.
Yeah, that's all great advice too. And you brought up something that I wanted to mention is, it sounds probably overwhelming, like having these 100 hours to complete. Um, we kind of arrived at that number because we often tell students that it's going to take about 10 hours of work per week per course. And so the 10 over 10 weeks is 100 hours. And then there's kind of 4 extra weeks in there where as a buffer, but the 100 hours doesn't mean you have to be actually like building something or doing something for each of those hours. Kind of like Ryan just said, maybe you are sitting in on a meeting, that's work. Maybe you're reading through email or reading a training manual for a new tool that you haven't learned before. That counts as work. So all of those things go towards your hours. And that's where we're going to have you keep that log so that you record just anything you're doing related to the internship is going to count. So it's not necessarily going to be 100 hours of like physically sitting at your desk building out things or sort of more active work. Some of it might be more passive where you're just kind of sitting and doing stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. So that kind of wraps up the formal presentation. I have a couple internship opportunities I can talk about, but before that, I just want to see, does anyone have any questions of me about how we've structured it at Quinnipiac or questions of our panelists kind of anything they've talked about tonight? You can either raise your hand if you want, or you can come off mute and just shout out since there's not a lot of you. Does anyone have any questions? as
No,
Bo
I
pointed
just
out, it's Monday,
no,
so everybody's fried, right?
no, I just want to say thank you to these three panelists. They're very knowledgeable, and it's a lot of great tips. So I took a lot of notes. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bo. Yeah, these are three of our best graduates. This is where you guys will be in a couple, couple semesters. Anyone else with questions? Nope. And I don't see any in the chat. So I just real quick want to share two specific experiences that I have coming up. If you want any more information or specific details, just feel free to reach out to me about it. One is at UConn Health. They're looking for 1 to 2 interns. Again, email me. I'll put you in contact with Melanie, who's looking for these interns. It sounds like really interesting work, but the thing is, it's going to happen this semester. So it's not going to be able to count as an official IDN course. But if anyone is looking for an internship right now, this is an opportunity that they have. It's a lot of course development, working in the learning management system, and it looks like even multimedia creation, which sounds really cool. So that one is at UConn Health. And then Hartford Hospital has an opportunity to build some online learning for their volunteer services department. And that one, again, you can reach out to me or I can send you this link. They are looking for someone to start in January. So it would coincide with our spring semester. It definitely would be something that could qualify for counting as coursework. The only caveat with that one is that they do need the person to come into Hartford a couple times into the office. They kind of want to meet the person, do a little bit of onboarding, but then a lot of the work can happen remotely. So there would be that expectation that you could make it into the office in Hartford from time to time. The other, I think, kind of exciting thing that we're working on at Quinnipiac is finding some opportunities internally at Quinnipiac. So we are doing a huge learning management system upgrade in the next 18 months. And so we're going to try to work with our academic technology department to create some internship opportunities in-house to help faculty at Quinnipiac with moving courses. So as that kind of takes more shape, I'll definitely publicize those opportunities for our students. And they also are talking about having someone build an online student orientation, like an interactive experience. I think the positions at Quinnipiac are not going to be paid, so I'm just going to put that out there. But it is a kind of a unique opportunity to get that higher ed experience. And I think we see less higher ed internship opportunities. And I have seen more in the corporate space. So the ones at Quinnipiac might be kind of interesting. So those are just some things that we have right now. But if anyone has any questions or follow up or when it gets closer, I know Kenya's towards the end of her time in the program, but Bo, Sarah, and Alexander are first semester students. So as you get closer, I'm always here to answer questions. So thank you guys for being here. And thank you so, so much, Alexandra and Tyler and Ryan, for sharing all of your experiences with us and for your willingness to come back to school on a Monday night and hang out with the IDN community. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and you know what? If anybody like has any questions that they think of later, you can maybe give them my email or something, and I'd be happy to answer anything else that might come up later on.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
You. Bye. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Guys.
same.
Thank you.